any type of way that I can help or, assist anybody in what you're doing. That's my true desire. I did 10 years in prison for aggravated robbery and drive-by specification. Through that process, so many people poured into me and saved my life, so I feel like it's my life work to do the same thing and pay that energy back forward, in my communities as well as back in the prison system. My overall conversation in the community is something called post-incarceration syndrome. A lot of times when people go to prison and they come home from prison, society is programmed to look at us like, oh, he's just crazy, or he's institutionalized, not knowing that, being in prison comes with a great deal of trauma. And it makes it even harder when it comes to society because a lot of times society feel like that we don't deserve to be traumatized because we've been in prison. But being in prison, it attacks you from every angle, mentally, spiritually, physically. And having to endure that for so long, I can't tell you one person who will be right after something like that. I'll take full responsibility for any crime that I committed as an adolescent, but still the conditions of prison, psychologically it rearranges you. It makes you look at the world in a way that nobody else is looking at the world. And that's something that I deal with every day. Post-incarceration syndrome is something that's very underdeveloped, it's overlooked, and even when you go to study it, the information is very shallow. You can tell no one is they was on something, but they wasn't really digging deep into it. Usually they tell a person that's been in prison they got PTSD, but PTSD is just like a room in a house of post-incarceration syndrome. It's like one of many things that's really happening to you psychologically to where, most men have nothing in society to really condition them to come back into society. I spent 6 years going to therapists, looking high and low for help, and I couldn't find the help, so I had to start creating the help for myself. No matter what therapist I went to, it seemed like they was insensitive to a certain point, the compassion wasn't there, and I found myself crashing. I found myself not having the mental and spiritual support that I really need based on the fact that my family and friends just look at me like, well, he's just crazy. Instead of just recognizing that, I spent 10 years in an alternative world. Prison is a totally different place for being free. And it does something to everybody. If anybody goes through an experience, it's all a matter of how it affects you. Because it's going to affect you, but it's to what degree. I'm what people would call I'm functioning. Like even I'm going through a lot psychologically, I can still function. That's why I can get out in the community because I'm a fighter. So when I see myself having psychological issues, I fight it. If I go to the grocery store, I go into a full-blown anxiety attack, and it becomes even worse because I consider myself strong mentally and spiritually. And when I get to the grocery store, I have so many senses going on, and now I'm up against the cereal, and my mind is overwhelmed, and I'm lost. Like, dang, how's this happening to me? Like, I'm so strong, why am I being overwhelmed like this? And if the person don't love me, they wouldn't know what to do. They would just sit there and be overwhelmed with me instead of helping me relax and understand that I'm free and things of that nature. So I just really want to spread the word of post-incarceration syndrome, and I'm searching high and low, not only for the help for myself, but for people just like me, man. It's hundreds of thousands of people coming home from prison, and society is just so quick to just write us off and make us feel like that we're just, somebody who can't get it right in life, but we need help, and that's my spiel. I started writing poetry to really maintain my mental health while I did time. I wrote poetry for 10 years straight for a woman that I loved, but then in turn I started teaching other prisoners poetry as well. And it changed my life. To this day, I still have poetry programs I create inside the prisons, and I use poetry as a tool of therapy. And instead of presenting poetry from an entertainment standpoint, I address it from a clinical standpoint or a medical standpoint. And today I want to share some poetry with you guys, and I hope that my poetry not only reaches your ears, but your heart as well. The first poem that I want to share with you guys, it was a poem that I had wrote in prison, and I was just really battling with trying not to be bitter. A lot of times in prison, man, prison makes us bitter, man. We feel so defeated. It feels so beat down in our life that a lot of us become extremely bitter. And I wrote this poem, Trying Not to Be Bitter. And the name of the poem is called When Art is War. And that's where I was at. This poem is personal. Something that I've never let any person know. See, my imperfect soul is in a bind like cursive. And I'm barely holding on. Like women who refuse to let their purses go to those who run by and steal purses. Though I'm alive, my insides appeal hearses. Doing time comes with a cost. And my mind appears purchased. My mind is still perched in '09 where Shay Shay disappeared and it pierced. I'm still hurting. I feel worthless. That I sit still searching for her to return to no avail. Maybe because I am low as hell on the totem pole and treat my family as if they owe alone because I am so alone. They treat me as if I am below a stone that reads rest in peace. Imagine that. West in peace. Instead, with each year, my stress increased from being stretched, increased. It's been years since I've seen my mother, and she refused to come see me. Behind that, I haven't slept in weeks. I feel stabbed in the back to the point where I wake up in the middle of the night like I can feel the middle of the knife. And they be like, Wes strong, he fine. Not knowing that in the course of my incarceration, I've almost been murdered 3 times, so how can I be fine? When this time is beating my behind to the point where I no longer read but define the art of war. Because when the mind and heart's at war, it's the heart of war. And don't think that you aren't at war. Because you're not pouring your soul out into a poem. You're probably just like me. And I could really use some help like a heavyweight champion's bound to lose his belt over politics. And that's why I felt Jeezy and Jay when they said, I done seen it all. Because I done seen a lot of shit. But you probably couldn't tell because I covered up with all this designer shit. And if I live in a world that teaches what a man thinks of, so is he, then why can't I feel like I'm the shit? But I remain humble if someone else tells me that I'm this shit, but on some honest shit, it's like my peers refuse to see me with power. Like on some honest shit. Tattooing my name on the forearm just to show the world that I'm this shit. But I ain't gonna lie. It got hard putting over honest shit. And I just knew I degraded my soul in that moment while I threw out all the honest shit. So just like fruit will ferment, love will turn to hate, and I hate memories that are bittersweet, and I haven't been asleep thinking about the women who's taken me for granted. Somehow I am the reason why their heart is hard as granite. But I can't feel bad for them because look what all God has granted when I stop taking God for granted. Poem. The next poem I want to share with you guys is a poem that I wrote.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks. Ain't not like a good clap. You know, like a good clap is just doing something to your soul, man. I'm gonna download the clap app and just, you know what I mean, get a clap for myself out there, feel good. For sure. Make sure y'all clap for yourselves as well and see how I feel. You know, well, let's clap it for ourselves for real, like, after y'all. Y'all gave it to me, I want to give it back. The next poem I share with you guys is, you know, after being home for 6 years, I kept on losing. I lost everything like 13 times. Where I built myself up, businesses, houses, cars, clothes, and I would lose it. And I went into a deep sadness for like 3 months because I was just broke.